Kendra and Tyler, would you guys like to introduce yourself just briefly, your role at Orangewood, and maybe a little specific, your role on this particular event?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Kendra Purrier. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Orangewood. At the time of this event, I had just passed my 1 year mark with the organization. Have been very involved with Orangewood for many years through Junior League, started my career at CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, so shared a building with Orangewood, and was so excited to be taking this event on. It had so much momentum, and we were just thrilled to have a packed house the year before. And Tyler had just joined us, so I'll let him share his experience.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tyler Choi, and I am the Donor Relations Manager over at Orangewood. And I actually had just started in March, so right before the pandemic hit and everybody went on lockdown. And my role is really to work with our 44 Women for Orangewood auxiliary group. And since this was their event, Kendra and I worked very closely in pivoting and making this event virtual and all the success working with our volunteer groups.
Yes, pivot. That is the word of the year, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
And
So,
most of you know Michelle, but Michelle was actually our veteran on this event. So I think she has worked on this event for Orangewood for 10 plus years, Michelle.
Yeah, I think the 44, I think it was the 6th year, but Orangewood for 10 years. Yeah, so I'm Michelle French of Sunday Soul Events. It's great to see so many familiar faces. And yeah, I just followed Kendra and Tyler's lead and march for this event when we just decided to mix it up. But we're in the nonprofit space doing events and fundraising events, usually bringing people together until March when, yeah, we all made our big pivot.
yes, and what a pivot it was. So let's get into it. And those of you who have, if you have questions while we're talking, feel free to put them in the chat. I will monitor that. I know kind of what's coming too, so I'll make sure that they're kind of in line with the presentation. But by all means, anyone on the call, if there's a specific question, just feel free to put that in the chat. Okay, so let's talk about it. So the 44 Women Orangewood virtual scholarship luncheon. Maybe just start off with, what does this normally look like?
Yes, so normally this event has over 400 people in a ballroom, like many of your events. Last year it was held at the Island Hotel, raised over $400,000. Was just a really fun time for our women and men to come together to support our work, hear inspiring speakers. The speaker before had been Elizabeth Smart. We were slated to have Leanne Toohey in that seat. And so really, thinking about innovation, being the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat, is the theme that we went with for the event, but also the theme of this presentation. So we hope that you will walk away inspired to pivot in any moment of uncertainty moving forward, because we are certainly getting lots of moments of uncertainty as things unfold. There are a lot of ways to do an event, and Sunday Soul Events is here to help you with all of that. But really for this presentation, what we found we wanted to focus on was just what is the framework for changing in times of uncertainty and thriving in times of uncertainty. And so I'll let Tyler talk a little bit about the impact that this event has on our youth and why it was so important for us this year.
Like Kendra mentioned, last year it raised over $400,000, and that's just a portion of what our scholarship program was able to do. And so that impacted 210 youth that received funding through our scholarship program. And it's not just tuition money, it's all needs. It's the basic needs. It's housing, it's food, it's the books, it's all of those other services that go into a college career. It's not just the tuition. So Orangewood really does wrap around all of the youth in the program and making sure that they have every tool necessary to succeed in what their goals and what their vision are. And so we really wanted to make sure that we understood what that impact was to our youth and what that impact was to our community before we moved into, okay, how are we going to change? How are we going to move this virtual? So really understanding what that impact was so that we know where we need to keep our focus. And our focus really was on making sure that we still serve our youth in the same way. So we scheduled the luncheon for June 5th. And
Oops,
as we
sorry.
all know, no, go ahead, it's fine. And as we all know, the world changed in March.
Yes, we like to call that D-Day, or the day that Disneyland closed.
Oh,
When Disneyland closed, you know we mean serious business.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah,
We actually had another event, a gala, slated for March 14th, and very quickly scrambled to get our auction online. That went fine, but we decided, gosh, that's not really a virtual event. So what does a virtual event look like?
right.
And that led us to our pivot moment.
I love this slide.
Slide.
I think everyone is probably pretty tired of the word pivot by now, but that is what we have all been called to do. And so we want to just share with you a little bit about what that pivot moment looked like for us. And I'll let Tyler kind of share how our department guided ourselves and our committee through that process.
Yeah, so we came up with 3 guiding questions, and those are things that as a department, but also as an organization of Orangewood, we wanted to make sure that in any time of crisis or any time that we are looking at reinventing or doing strategic planning or looking at what an event is or how we are doing our jobs, we wanted to make sure that we keep these 3 guiding questions in the forefront. And the first one was, how do we want to be remembered during this challenging time? How does Orangewood want to be remembered? How does the scholarship lunch want to be remembered? How do our volunteer groups want to be remembered for what we did or what we didn't do during this time for our youth? And the second question is, how can we show up for our community? And we kind of broke that down into different community groups that we have. So we have our community, which is our youth and the people that we serve. We have our community, which is our volunteer groups, which includes our 44 Women for Orangewood. It includes our staff. It includes anybody that kind of volunteers and works with the population that we serve. And then the third one is our general community at large, the community of Orange County. How did we want to show up for small businesses? How do we want to show up for the people that have supported us in our community? And then the third one was, what does our community need right now? So really taking our 3 community groups and figuring out, what do they need? What does our youth need? What do our volunteers need? And what does our Orange County community need? So those are the guiding questions that really led us to, how are we going to change this event? How are we going to move forward and pivot at our event?
I think this is so important. I actually think this is the most important part of this whole conversation, because I think typically when we're in scrambles and we're in like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And when it comes to fundraising, you would think the first question is, well, how much do we need to raise, or how much do we think we can raise, or who would probably attend this? And we're focusing on things that are just gonna like, it is what it is, right? We raise what we raise, we do what we do. But if we focus on, really, these questions helped you with the why. Why are we even going to do this? And it's about the youth. It's about communicating, and later on, when we get into the agenda, it's going to show that you guys really did answer these questions, because you kept the essence of the event about still the target population that you serve, because Orangewood, you guys do so much, and this event is very specific, right? It has a very, very specific niche reason for existing, and you kept that, and I love that these guiding questions helped that process. Okay, so what were the options then once those questions were answered? What were the options that came about?
Yeah, so once we figured out what our guiding questions are and how we were going to answer them, we came up with 3 options. And the first one was cancel the event completely. And we're like, we can't do that because that impacts everything. And it really goes against our guiding questions. It isn't what's best for our community. And so we totally said, no, we cannot cancel. The second option was to reschedule. And we're looking at that, and back in March, May era, I say, we didn't know what was going to happen. And so rescheduling could have been an option, but then it would have ended up, we'd have to reschedule it again or cancel or do
Well, look where we
multiple
are now,
moves with
right?
it. Where we are
Yeah.
now, exactly.
Yeah.
So our third option was to go virtual.
Okay.
And we put that little graphic, keep calm and go virtual, because it was scary. It was something we've never done before. It there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of moving parts, and so we had to figure out what that's going to look like and how do we transform a live in-person event into a virtual event and still keeping the essence of what we wanted to do and still follow our guiding questions.
Yeah, and good thing you did, because like I said earlier, yeah, look where we are now. If you had tried to reschedule, you'd be rescheduling again. And I think this is a good, thinking back to March, April, when that question was here, like, do we cancel, do we reschedule? I think that's something fair to also think about just in everything we're doing right now in nonprofits, even programming. It's like, you know what, maybe we just need to just realize this is where we are and go for it. And you guys just chose to do that 2 months prior, right? And just go for it. Well done. Just a reminder to those of you listening, put yourselves on mute. I will try and find you and mute you myself, but just in case, as you're joining, put yourself on. Okay, moving on. All right.
Unless it's one of us. I have a house being built next door. I know Tyler and Michelle have kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some new people joining us, so I'll do a browse right now. But go ahead, move. So the inspiration for moving.
Yeah, Tyler mentioned it. We had the funny graphic that everyone has seen, keep calm and go virtual. And it's a nod to, I think, the most important thing about this event, which was rallying the team to get excited. So when this first hit, I'm a fairly new leader in this organization, and the first person I called was Michelle. And I said, gosh, what can we do here? We had some ideas, we had this brainstorming session, and once I knew I had a partner who had been here for a while, who understood the landscape, who was willing to do this, who was an expert in events, the most important thing was inspiring our community. And so I think some important things to remember there. I am no Tony Robbins, but I can rally people behind a cause. I have to really believe in it first. And this was really scary. I had never done this before. In 15 years of doing events, I thought I had seen just about everything. And this was a real new curveball for me. So the 5 things I did were, I was really honest. I did not pretend like this was going to be easy or that I got this. I was really honest that I'd never done this and that I felt a little scared too. But the second thing I did was not show how scared I was and how uncertain I was, because that doesn't inspire most people. I exuded confidence in all of the things that I was sure of. One being partnering with Michelle. Much of what we were doing for this virtual event was backed by best practices for events, just in a different format. And so kind of clinging to those pieces that you are certain about, the things you do know. I got in the trenches, which in this role I don't often do. I will every now and then, but it's not always the best use of my time. But in this case, being a fairly new leader, embarking on a really new way of doing things, I spent a lot of time in the weeds, if you will. And then the last thing I did was I didn't take no for an answer. I know in times of uncertainty, it's really easy to kind of take the easy way, put it off, reschedule, let's not really make a decision. And so I didn't take no for an answer, at least the first 2 times. And I saw that really work. It really pushed people to think out of the box. It pushed me to think out of the box. So when I felt myself saying no to an idea, I would push back on myself and say, is there a way that we can figure this out? And so part of our inspiration was actually sharing this video with our mostly all-female committee. And I just want to share it with you guys.
What do we do now? Seriously, I'm not kidding. Go back and watch any movie, and you will see this line over and over again. You're going to see it now. I'm telling you. My daughter watched a movie last weekend. She goes, Mom, I heard that line. And I love to ask questions, but it's my most hated question. And I dread reading scripts that have no women involved in their creation, because inevitably I get to that part where the girl turns to the guy and she goes, what do we do now? Now, do you know any woman in any crisis who has absolutely no idea what to do? I mean, don't they tell women, they tell people in crisis, little children, that if you're in trouble, talk to a woman. It's ridiculous that a woman wouldn't know what to do.
And I watch this often. I don't know if anyone has seen it before and if you use it as your little mantra, but this really fired me up. I think it fired the committee up. We were not going to turn and say, what do we do now? We were going to be the trailblazers, and we were going to figure out what to do, how to do it. Our committee got so on board. They were asking all the right questions. They were not going to let this thing fail. And as anyone who's done an event knows, engaging the committee is one of the most important things that you can do to be successful. So I'm going to let Tyler talk a little bit about that, because that was his main role in all of this.
You know, really quick though, I kind of just want to ask Michelle a question there. Like, when Michelle, you were getting tons of calls, I know, March, April, May. And so what was your mindset going in when Kendra called? Like, you had history with the event, you knew that this was coming, just from the event person standpoint. Just, can you give a little, insight into what you were going through?
Well, it was traumatic at the time, but I think now post, we can all have a different perspective about it. But I agree with what both Kendra and Tyler have been really honest about, that it was terrifying. There were options, but no options. And the uncertainty, I think, was very daunting at the time. I think we can all acknowledge that. And the most important thing, I think, is when we were all called to just answer those questions and to decide how we were going to show up, and to really be motivated by that more than anything else. And so I think knowing that rooted in it, whatever we did still have some best practices, some foundational event elements. If we could just hold on to that, then we could execute through whatever that terrain was. So, I mean, I think it was terrifying. And I think going through those options, like we all did, of do we reschedule? Do we postpone? And I think more the uncertainty about postponing and knowing we would likely have to do it again kind of also put it in the space of like, the time is now. The time is now to decide how we're going to do this. So given that opportunity alongside, I think there was no question. But and Kendra mentions it, there was a very significant phone call where we're like, all right, like, I don't know whose parachute this is, but we're going to use it, and here we go.
All right, that's good. Well, I think it's important to those who are going into, there's some nonprofits out there who this was their first year for an event, right? So it's even a double whammy of like, gosh, we just took the leap of faith to have that big event, and now we got to figure out something else. And so I think it's good to hear, like, okay, if a large, you're $1 million organization, if you guys were scared going in, you know what, it's okay, guys, everyone's going to be scared going in, so don't worry. So okay, Tyler, so talk about the committee. I know, committees are, I'm big on committees are huge. Committees are the lifeline to your organization, the board, the events, the connections. So how did you engage the committee?
Yeah, so I think the first thing was bringing them in on the very beginning of this. When we made the decision to go virtual and not cancel, it was bringing them in with that and showing them those three options. Like, look, we can cancel, we can postpone it, or we can go virtual, and really helping them see the go virtual, help them to see what our vision was for this, help them to understand the impact that each one of them has made on this event in the past, and how they can still make an impact and be those innovators going forward and going through this. And we just put a picture up there of all of them in one of our Zoom meetings, but like, it's
like a fun one.
Just like just like Ken just said, they asked the hard questions. They really were engaged. When we came up with an innovative idea, they didn't shoot it down right away. They asked, okay, how is this going to work? What are the elements that are going to go into that? What is the back end work that we need to do? How can I help you do this? And each and one of them stepped up in unique ways, but it all came back to inspiring them, engaging them, making sure that they were along for the journey from
So
the very beginning.
did you go to them with just those three options and then brainstorm from there, or did you actually go to them with a concept and then it was like inspiring or getting them excited about the concept?
We did have a concept, but it was a very early concept. It was, we know we want to go virtual and we know we want to still have this event because we want to follow our guiding questions and we want to make sure that we're showing up for our community and we're showing up for our youth and we're still making an impact. And I think the biggest piece of it was those guiding questions and the why, making sure that they understood the why, and all of them were more on board than ever with that why and making sure that this happened. So we had a general concept, but they really are the ones that help flesh it out.
Okay, I think that's important because, you know, some of the things I'm hearing when I'm working with organizations is getting that buy-in from the board and the committee to move forward. And I think sometimes it's because maybe we put too much on the board to come up with the ideas or decisions. So then it's just too flustering and it's like, you know, then let's not do it. But you guys came with like confidence, right? It's that confidence of here's the staff, here's the concept, you know, we need you to keep doing what you were doing even in an in-person, right? Ideas, connections, but the staff are ready. Will you come with us? Sounds like.
And this presentation is actually one that we modified. This was the presentation we used with our committee. And so you're going to see a vision board here in a minute because I'm big on vision boards and everyone I've ever made has manifested. I'm just saying. So we shared a vision board. I have learned over the years, there are some people who can envision something. Michelle is one of those people. And then there are folks who will get on board if you can show it to them. And so being as visual as you possibly can with whatever you do know is so important so that you get people in that space, help them understand what this is going to look like, how this is going to feel. And I think that was a crucial part of that first concept sharing.
Yeah, well, no, 100%. I think anytime people, I mean, 80% of us are visual. You know, you've got kinesthetic, visual, and the person that likes to touch, and majority of us are visual. We just take it in better. So I hear you there. Okay, so then what transpired? Talk about then what came out of the committee, and it looks like the objectives didn't change too much, but you know, talk us through this.
Right. So we asked the committee those three guiding questions and came up with the objective. So we really wanted to make sure that we showed up for our community and what do we want to be remembered by? And these are the three objectives that we came up with the committee. It's how do we want to support our youth? What is it that we do through this event, through the scholarship lunch that supports our youth? And they really decided that it's the fundraising. It's bringing in the money so that those youth have all the tools and resources that they need. The other objective for the event is to provide connection. It's bringing the donors and the youth together. It's creating that space where we can engage both the donors and the youth in the same environment, where we can share some of those success stories of our youth, where we can share what the donors are doing and connect them together, but also connect the donors to each other. That's a big piece of events, is sitting around the table and talking with people that you know, or meeting new people and building those connections. And how are we going to do that when we're all isolated at home? So that was one of the big objectives. And then how are we going to support our local community? What small businesses or what community members are we going to bring alongside and support with this event? We knew we weren't going to be at the hotel because we weren't going to do a live, but what are we going to do? Are we going to use a caterer? Are we going to still do centerpieces and florals? What are those small businesses that we partner with or that have supported Orangewood in the past? And how are we going to come together with all of that?
Yeah, that was a huge piece. We know that when we cancel an event, so many of our vendors who've been very loyal to us, provided us discounts, donated services, donated products will be impacted as well. And we have youth who work for those organizations, and we just felt that was really important. So the next step was really saying, okay, what does an event look like in person? Why do people come? And how can we translate all of those pieces into a virtual experience? As Tyler mentioned, we kept those guiding questions and our 3 objectives in mind when making any decision about something to add, because as you all know, events can kind of snowball and grow, and everyone's got lots of fun ideas, but they really needed to meet one of those 3 objectives or to answer one of those guiding questions. So we know that events inspire, inform donors about our program. We wanted to make sure we had that element. We wanted to do some fundraising, and fundraising at an event offers us what I like to call peer influence, also known as peer pressure. But having people in the room, people seeing that you've shown up that day, people seeing that you're raising your paddle, that you're donating, that you're supporting this cause, is why event fundraising works and why we keep doing it, because it's a lot of work, right? It'd be much easier just to send out a link and ask people to donate online. But the reason we do it in person is because of that peer influence. The other piece of this is the shared experience and the community that we generate, and the feeling that you're a part of a collective impact, and that you're there with other donors who are like-minded, that you're there with some of our youth, that you're there with our staff. And then, of course, the fun elements of an event that are a part of that shared experience are enjoying food and florals and treats and just kind of a fun day. So those are the elements that we really wanted to recreate, and that's what we really focused on. And this next slide is the vision board that we actually did share with our committee when thinking about how we would execute all of those elements in a virtual space. So the first thing we did was pivot our speaker. Leanne Tui was contracted, signed, and she said, gosh, I just don't think I'm going to have the same impact virtually that I would in a room. I feed off the energy. Like, I just think this isn't a good use of your money. I'm willing to, put this off until next year and honor your contract for next year. So we found an amazing speaker. Her name was Devin Alexander. She has adopted a little girl from the foster care system. She's a celebrity chef. She and I had great conversations about pivoting her business and really supporting people through this pandemic with healthy cooking options, shelf-stable fruits and veggies. And so we really felt like this would be a good value add for our audience, but also still staying true to our mission. We wanted to make sure that we still had, go ahead.
You still had Leanne do a little soundbite though.
She did do a little soundbite. She was very generous with us. So she did film something and say, I'm so sorry I can't be there with you, but I will be there next year. I hope you enjoy this virtual luncheon.
I thought that was a great ad. I as short and simple as it was, I thought that was a really good ad to put in there. So good idea.
And a part of this, you mentioned it, short and simple. You don't have the kind of, attention spans are waning in general, even in a live event, but now you've got people on Zoom. And so really keeping this short and tight, but not rushing through it, was something that Michelle and her team and her husband, who is our MC, really supported us with. So I don't know, Michelle, if you want to talk a little bit about the program here.
Sure. Yeah, I think that it's like we've kind of said, it's just taking what we would have presented before and turning that into this virtual format. And so that was a huge question, which we'll even talk more about, of a virtual event. Like, is that a live event? Is that a live stream? Is that a Zoom? Is that what is that? And that's been this question that's been defined and redefined over the last 5 months. And this was so new at the time that we were like, well, this is a show and there needs to be live elements. And we were in such constraints of what that could look like, of can we ask our co-chairs to do a video? Can we send a camera crew social distance to them? Can we do a cooking demo and rely on Chef Alexander to just do that from her kitchen with an iPhone? Like, we don't know. So let's try all of that. Let's explore every option. And we got ourselves in situations where, like, yep, that's a go. They're going to do their iPhone. And then they call and are like, this isn't going well. And we're like, okay, we've got you. We can Zoom call and coach you through how to do it, or we can send a film crew and we can social distance with you. And so it was just being able to just talk through all of that. So we started with a run of show, the traditional run of show, and then we modified that to what 1 hour impact could look like, and then realized we were going to need some like hosting and support that maybe at a live event, when you can intro from one person to the next, you maybe don't need. We were pretty honest of like, this needs some continuity. It just does. So in that moment, we were fortunate that in my house lived someone that could help us with that. But now we've been able to evolve that, and we can, open that space up a little bit more. But at the time, it was like that. It was like, all right, well, let's literally work with what we have right here.
Yeah, that's good. And I think a little later, there's a slide on that. But I love how you guys did take the in-person and just identified the elements that meant so much, and then just how could you tweak it to the virtual, like even from the Kendra you were saying about connection. I mean, you guys tackled breakout rooms, like kudos to you. And there's stories there, I'm sure, that came out of that, but tackling the breakout rooms and making it feel like we were at a table enjoying our lunch.
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, the paddle. I didn't have my paddle, but I had my phone, and I was prompted like, now's the time. But on the screen, I got to see, the thermometer. So very, very cool elements that were still in the program, but it was just a different paddle and a different person, talking. And so I think those were great. So in the interest of time, I just want to, we've got like, maybe we've 5 for sure, but we can go into 10 more minutes. Well, you tell me what elements of the rest that's left over here in your presentation that you think are really pertinent for the fundraisers in the room to hear, or if some of you have questions already that are just burning based on what you've heard so far, feel free to start asking. I want to be mindful of our time and make sure we also get to certain things, but talk a little bit about those obstacles. I'm sure that's what everyone is also thinking. Like Michelle, you just said, like, okay, the iPhone doesn't work. Zoom is not what we thought it was. You guys chose Zoom, did you try out any others? Things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that, like you were saying, getting to that and getting to this place where they even obstacles, I think what you've heard from Kendra and Tyler so far, I am sure you can also agree that like inspiration and overcoming obstacles was there. That's all there was just being so inspired by what we were trying to do collectively. And absolutely, there are moments like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to figure it out. And I think that that's where just that honesty and that teamwork will get you through any of that, because you're able to be honest about like, hey, I had this idea, we tried this, it didn't really work, so let's try something else. So overcoming obstacles is something we face in our events all the time. I mean, this is something that we know we're as prepared as we can be so that we can face all the things that we didn't expect, and virtual is no different. Absolutely no different than that you're sailing along. And at that time we were also thinking about supply chain and who's going to be there, and working with wanting to deliver this shared experience. Were there going to be drivers available to do that? Like, how are we going to coordinate all of that? So I think the best thing that came out of that for all of us is that for us, again, just all you can do is have the end in mind and get there together. That with fear, we have this little saying of like, and you guys have probably heard it, like, feel everything and rise. Like, I feel that if this is uncomfortable, it's not going to work. Okay, but I'm going to rise above that and find a different solution. And at the end of that, it also came to just like this says, team and resource, that we had an amazing committee that had so much tradition and so much trust. They trust Kendra, they trust Tyler, they trust the Orangewood team. And thankfully, since we've been around a little while, they trust us. And so with that trust and their motivation, anything was possible. I think that the biggest thing was like not to ignore what's already in front of you. So you mentioned the phone and being able to donate on your phone. Well, that's something we already had. We had that technology. We just needed to pivot how we were using it. And so we already had a system that allowed that. We researched so many platforms. At the time, Zoom was perfectly appropriate. That's just a decision about how you're going to stream and what the quality of that video is going to be. But we didn't have to, once we overthought it, we didn't have to overthink it anymore. That like
Okay.
once you make those decisions.
And
And
what
then
that
there's
translated to, Michelle, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to say, if you're thinking, is it worth it to hire an event company, to hire Michelle's team? Michelle is diplomatically saying right now that she saved us $25,000 by leading us to use Zoom instead of some other platform, because that was the cost of the different software we were looking into. So thank you.
Wow. Yeah. No, I think, and that's a good, that's a good, information to provide. I think some of us might feel zoomed out and we might think like, no, we need something else. But yeah, I attended the event and it seemed flawless on my end, the one seeing it. But right here, you see in this slide, there were a lot of people behind the scenes. So was there any technology upgrades you had to be mindful of? I mean, I know some nonprofits, we're still working off of Microsoft, 2010. So was there an added IT team, or did you already have that in-house? Anything you had to add because of this event that didn't already exist?
I think yes. I think being able to connect with an IT team that we maybe didn't have to bring into events before. So, and we did that through just sharing, here's what we're going to attempt to do, and can you support us that day? So we actually changed our internal structure to be able to provide more on knowledge about technology and support in that way. However, we also then asked the Orangewood IT team to just join us that day. And so they were part of the chat and had their own username. So if you had any issues, IT was there to support that. The other thing we did was added what we called cocktails and connectivity. And so we provided everybody an opportunity the day before the event to log in, because we knew there'd be issues. Every time you go on, even if you know exactly what you're doing, there's some kind of technology glitch. So the night before, we framed it in a way to join together, have a cocktail with us, and let us troubleshoot with you. We told you what you were going to be able to expect the next day. And honestly, I don't know, that was just a fun group too, that then the energy for us as a team the next day, knowing that people were going to be there, knowing that we had that support, that camaraderie, we're like, we're going to do this, and we feel really good about it. So just giving your team a chance to play with the technology before, invite your committee into it. We did a test with the committee, we did the cocktails and connectivity. So people were comfortable with the technology by the time we were really asking them to join us that day.
Yeah, I thought that was smart. To have that pre-session for those that were nervous, especially if they're brand new. One of the questions was, how did you ensure that they got there, especially maybe the older population that they're just like, I don't know any of this stuff. Having that pre-day was really smart. So it was a happy hour. You didn't have to go, but it was really just all about technology. Are you there? People got to test their camera out or their video or their computer. It was very, very low key. I thought that was smart. What else about the run of show, prepping, and then we'll get into a little bit of the agenda. We'll go for another 5-6 minutes. So Lisa, be ready with the raffle items, because I know this is important info. So what else about the run of show and production?
Yeah, so I think like in all things, when we started with the run of show and what we wanted those elements to be, that was the most important thing to start with. And then making sure we had a different feel for virtual. We recognized even, and that was when we were planning in May, that people would be potentially zoomed out. So who would know that in September, this is still kind of our main communication. But even then, we're like, what if people are zoomed out? And so our biggest goal in all of the virtual events we're involved in is, how do we make that feel different? How does it not feel like a Zoom? Like, I want engagement. And going through, now there's guiding questions about what you want that experience to feel like. Do I want engagement visually? I want engagement in chat? Victoria, what you did as people joined on today, hi Sally, great to see you. Like, that is huge. And so just because we're in this virtual environment, we knew we needed to greet our guests. We needed to say hello. And so now it's different metrics. It's different entertainment. Now we're educating you, inspiring you, and entertaining you. And it's a show. It's still a show. The show must go on. And this is about making sure we put something together that just still moves you in that way. So the visuals were important, the pace. This slide shows the interaction, big question. So yeah, let's use Zoom so that people can see each other. Fundraising, let's use that thermometer. Let's use technology. Let's be able to use your phone and actually see people's names come up as they donate and call them out live. That was live. All of that part of the show was a dynamic that we just did live, and it's possible. And really, with your tech and production, it's like taking your AV team that's usually in the back of the room and just putting them, well, in your garage in this case, but putting them near you, and you're just still calling a show. So I think if you can get through the intimidation of like, oh, there's so many options and this is all new, it is, but the foundation is the same. The way that I would write a script and run a show, it was the same at the end of the day. But
what was the fundraising platform that you used? I know that's a big question.
Yeah, of course. We use Greater Giving for two big reasons, probably. Mostly that we had adopted Greater Giving to Orangewood maybe 2 years ago, and so the organization was already using it. Our team is extremely familiar with it. There are a lot of great platforms, but we used Greater Giving for this one.
And with Greater Giving, one thing I know as a person that attended, what really, helped and triggered me on the fund a need portion, other than your husband being so, brilliantly animated, is that I was watching it, but then I got a text, like, now's the time. And it was so easy. It was click a link, put in my amount and go. And because I had also participated in the pre-auction, in the raffle opportunity, all my credit card info was just saved because you already had it. If I had not done a raffle opportunity, would you have been able to text me? Because I didn't even know how you got my number, other than if I had done that. But
that's tricky,
that
like
smart. Yeah, that was smart. It was convenient. I mean, we live in a world of conveniency now and high tech, and just like 2 clicks. If I have to do more than 2 clicks, like, this is too much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We call that like the breadcrumbs. So in any transaction, the breadcrumbs, the further you have to go in, the less likely you are to do it. So what I will say that will probably convince a lot of organizations of even why this is a viable option, even in times that maybe we can gather, is that the amount of information, contact information. So one of the biggest questions we would get virtual is, how will we get people's information at registration? Like, my sponsor bought a table of 12 and I have like half their guest names and I'm not sure who else is going to show up, and I'm certainly not going to have their information.
Yeah.
We've struggled with that for a long time. So this event, if you want your deliveries, if you want to be communicated the link about how you're even going to join us, I need your email. I need your mobile. It was incredible, the amount of donor data we were actually able to gather because of that. So when you registered a guest, it was as required as we could make it to make sure that we did have their email and their mobile so we could communicate with them.
It's true.
And then, to your point on making
it. I'm thinking about my table. So we were with the Ducks Foundation. So when I do remember Wendy said, I need all this info for your lunch, because you delivered lunches. We had a question about that, like, how did that happen? But yeah, otherwise, if it was in person, she would have just said, show up.
Exactly. And whether or not we got your information may or may not happen. If you didn't register a credit card, and I think now people are tending to do that more, they're much more comfortable with it than they used to be. But even if you had opted out of that, we did set it up so you could still pledge. We had actually really kind of all pre-checked everyone in, and then we knew we had your contact information, so we could still follow up with you. And the team, Orangewood team, felt really confident about the number of people and did an excellent job afterwards by sending a communication. There were 3 ways you could still make your contribution, and one of those was to even arrange a follow-up call with someone from development so that they could still contact you, make a point of contact, thank you for your gift. So I'm sure Kendra or Tyler could speak to that, but I think it opened up a lot more opportunity for follow-up and engagement afterwards.
Yeah, so let's stick with this slide for a little bit on the experience, because you guys really did a good job at the experience. So communicating what was going on. You delivered food with almost like the table setting. So I got flowers, I got a bottle of champagne, a little bottle of champagne, the food that had a date of, how long it could be in the fridge. Who wants to talk about that? Because I think that was, sounded like a lot of logistics.
we blocked that out, Victoria.
Did we do that? I don't remember.
There's There's actually a great video here, Victoria, on slide
Oh,
23, if you want to just share, and I think
yeah,
people can see the experience.
I'd love to. Okay, here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Kimberly Kirksey. I'm co-chair of this year's Fabulous Luncheon.
And I'm Mary Vanderbeshay, co-chairing with Kimberly this year.
The 44 Women for Orangewood is an amazing group of women who truly care about the success of our youth. These youth come from foster homes, they are homeless, or they're survivors of sex trafficking. This lunch is our virtual lunch for them to raise money to financially help support them. So with all of you today being here at the lunch, thank you for making a difference in the kids' life.
As far as the proceeds from this event that support our scholars, they are also doing okay. Their biggest needs are coming in the area of social, emotional support that they need. A lot of them don't have a big support system to lean on. It's scary, challenging times for them. So our staff are doing a great job reaching out, connecting with them, seeing what they need, making sure that we can help them with their bills, any financial assistance, groceries, hygiene items, but most of all, just knowing that we're there for them, and if they have anything that they need from us, to let us know.
Thank you so much, Carla. It was your lifesaver, literally.
So now is that time, ladies and gentlemen. We want to raise some money for Orangewood. That is why we are here, to raise money for scholarships. We're like, and ladies and gentlemen, you responded in a very generous way. So thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. We cannot wait to see you in person next year. Have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
That's great. Oh, that's a great way to kind of end round this out. For those of you, some of you had questions about the feel and look. I think that answers it completely, how you kept the elements from the colors to the flowers, the slide deck. I did see, did you guys use a green screen in some spots? So it sounds like there's an investment made on a green screen, or Michelle, I'm sure you guys have all that. But it felt like, I know as a person that went, it did feel like I was there with all the aesthetics that you guys used on the screen. So well done. We have 2 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get to our raffle. Any last words that you want to share? If you had a question, you feel like it didn't get answered, I'll copy the chat and maybe I'll send them to Kendra and Tyler, and they can reach out to you individually. But it looks like also there's YouTube that you guys placed things on, so that's very helpful. We'll make sure to get that link out. Any last things you guys want to add?
I would just say, please feel free to reach out to us. I think this is a community where we want to support one another, and we learned a lot during this event. Some things went really well, some things could have gone better. And so please reach out to us. We are open to sharing all of those resources. And obviously, Michelle, I cannot say enough. Please hire her. Her garage is the new happening event venue in Orange County. Virtually, that is. And we couldn't have done this without her team. But we're happy to share resources if you want to do something on a smaller scale and just need some tips or pointers. That's what the nonprofit community is all about, is collaboration. So please reach out.
Wonderful. Tyler?
Yeah, absolutely. Kendra said it kind of the best, is we couldn't have done it without Michelle and our team. I mean, as much as you think you can, you're like, oh, we got all this, we can use our technology we have. At the end of the day, it's the run of show. It's everything that her team brought to the table. It's the way that they were able to bring the AV together, the green screen in her garage, her husband doing that last minute, and all of those smaller elements that we probably would have forgotten, and it would have looked like we forgot something, were handled by Michelle's team. So use what you have, ask questions, and yeah, get Michelle on board.
Spectacular. Well, I think it brings it all back around that it's about partnerships and partnerships that we develop in this space, in this community. That Orangewood showed up for the youth. They showed up for what they stand for. They showed up for, as they mentioned, vendors that have been partners and loyal. And I mean, we're so appreciative for that. It's a scary time for lots of companies and businesses that are in that space. And knowing that you still have partners that want to make a difference. So we always lean on the work of our clients. You are all the ones that are out there in the field making things happen, and we're just here to support that. So without their encouragement and motivation and AFP and everybody that's part of AFP, none of this would be possible. And these changes happening in our community wouldn't be happening. So we're thrilled to be part of it.